Thanks everybody for coming. The second session that we've had today, down here for Ian's book signing session. There might be some rinse and repeat, some of the things, some of the same questions, but good to go over them again. I think, as I said earlier, I've been quite fortunate to interview a lot of the road racers in the paddock over the years, and nobody comes close to Ian and his story and what he's achieved. And we all know, obviously, back in 2010, Ian was riding the crest of a wave, quite literally. By his own admission, it was easy, throwing your leg over the bike and winning. He'd won 5 TTs in a week, unprecedented, still unmatched today. He then went on from there to the Ulster Grand Prix. Was it 3 that you won there, I think? And then the Scarborough Gold Cup. So it was this crest of winning, and that wave unfortunately came down with quite a bit of a bang at Silverstone. We know exactly, obviously, what happened then, and for Ian, his career, effectively, his profession, all but seemed to be over. And I think against the odds, he's proved what he can do, and obviously come back to the sport and come back to winning ways. Obviously here today for his book, and what we'll do is we'll have a chat with Ian now, and then for about 20 minutes, and then your opportunity to get your book signed. So this year, another successful season. Talking about the TT, how did the TT go for you this year?
Yeah, I think it's probably been my most successful season overall from when I started racing. Obviously, I won 5 in a week at the TT in 2010, but I didn't do what I've done on the British Championship this year, and another 3 wins at the TT, and 4 wins at the Ulster, and a win at the Northwest. Everywhere we've been, we've won races, and it's definitely been my best season so far.
Mm-hmm. Not sort of mentioned, we didn't mention earlier about, obviously, you competed this year in the Superstock in BSP, and almost won the title. Is that something you do for bike time, or is it something you're genuinely pushing to go for?
Well, obviously my accident happened in the British Championship in Supersport, and I was trying to, achieve what I could on the short circuits at the time, and then since then, having so much time off, it's been tough getting back to a point of being competitive on the circuits, and I haven't really been very competitive up till this year. So I started the year and I knew that I needed a lot of time on the bike before the TT. I'd moved to BMW for the first time, and I said I need to be riding something in the British Championship. So we decided to do Superstock, and I said we'll do the 3 rounds before the TT. If it's not going very well, we'll leave it at that and just do the roads. If it's going all right, we'll carry on. And going into the TT, I was second in the championship. So it was a bit of a surprise, really. And looking back now, I wish I'd tried a little bit harder at the start of the year, because I was just there for track time and keeping myself out of danger, really. In the first 3 races, I finished 3rd in, and I could have probably pushed a little bit more. And we lost finished 2nd in the championship by only 26 points. I had to miss a whole round for the TT because there was a race on at Donington when the TT was on. So, it was really close to being in a position to win the championship again, which has been brilliant for me. And going into next year now, I can aim to be competitive right from round 1.
Does it not concern you more? I mean, obviously, because that's where, when you're doing something like the short circuits and the BSB, you are at the sort of realm of other riders potentially just knocking you. Was there not a point when you came back and thought, right, road racing, I'll stick with that and avoid the short circuits?
At first, no, I was absolutely fully up for circuits, and then on and off things that I was riding in the British Championship weren't really working, and then going into the year last year, I was thinking probably just do roads from now on. And then obviously I had my success again last year and thought I'll just have one more go and try this Superstock Championship. And now I'm back fully wanting to do everything in the British Championship. So But it's always a balancing point. I mean, you need the time on the bike, but it's no good going and doing British Championship to get time on a bike for the TT and finishing 20th position and, you know, getting all down about it and feeling like you're not riding very good and losing confidence and stuff. If you're racing at the front, it follows on into the roads and you take that confidence with you. And that's what it was like for me this year. We've been unbeaten on the Superstock bike at every single road race this year, and that's the bike I've been riding week in, week out. So, but you have to just be. I'm probably not the best at qualifying because that's the lap where you have to put everything on the line and expect to fall off, and I don't want to fall off, and it won't make any difference for the race. So I just kind of get myself first or second row every weekend, and then wherever I've qualified, I always end up somewhere in the race. So yeah, I think the younger lads that I'm racing against, they go berserk in qualifying. You know, they're all fighting to get pole position. I don't think they've realised it don't actually matter in the race, pole position, but when you're that age, you know, that's what you do. So it's been good to be able to find that balancing point and be able to go out and cautiously ride and still be getting front row qualifyings and winning races and finishing second overall in the championship.
You're obviously very competitive on the short circuits. I mean, but would you say you're a road racer or short circuit? Is there one sort of area that you'd say?
I wouldn't like to just do one. You know, it was a big letdown for me last year when I was starting to think about just doing road racing, because I do enjoy short circuit racing. So it's great to be back being competitive. That's what I like doing. And it wasn't enough last year. I did the first 3 rounds. I did the Northwest and TT, and then never rode a bike until the Ulster, and then never rode a bike till Macau. You know, and I can't be just sat down watching everyone else race and, you know, not racing for so long. So this year it's been the opposite. After the Ulster, I was fed up of racing. I've been racing every single weekend, done the Northwest, done the TT, back straight into British Championship, over to the Ulster, straight back another British Championship round. You know, it's been absolutely crazy. But as soon as the season finishes, it's a bit of a relief to get some time off. But then a couple of weeks in, you already can't wait to race again. So I like being busy with it, and I like racing, you know, every weekend really.
When do you sort of get into TT mode and get the mind ready for the TT?
As soon as it clicks into the new year, really, you sort of your mind's on everything. Your mind's on the first round of the British Championship, whichever track you're going to go testing at. And, you know, that's just one of the things. As soon as you know you're going to whichever race you're going to next, you're thinking about that for everything you do in day-to-day life. You're just going around that circuit thinking about it, and you know, that's why it takes over your life so much, really.
Mm-hmm. TT this year, obviously, it was highly competitive between yourself and Michael. That sort of, you know, within the press conferences. A lot of adrenaline flowing after you've done 6 laps of the TT course. That must be quite tough, you know, afterwards when you sort of put in those positions to sort of discuss the race.
I mean, the TT is always going to be tough because that's the nature of the place, but when you're in a position to try and win every single race and all your bikes are competitive and you're competitive on them, you go through practice week riding so hard every single night, and we had great weather, so we never missed a night. You do so many laps, and then you try to win every single race every single day. You know, it just gets everything on top of you, and it's very hard to, you know, keep everything on track really. And yeah, it's just a hard place to race really, other than just even the racing off the track and everything. You know, it's a busy place for fans to come, and everybody wants a part of you. And you know, your head's always buzzing because you've just come off going around 37 miles of roads, and you never know where you are and what you're doing, and somebody's wanting you to be here and be there and be somewhere else, and it's just the most hectic 2 weeks that you can ever have, really. Yeah,
I think I've asked you this before. I mean, do you have preferred parts of the course where you know you go better, or is there, you know, I think a lot of the riders, they always say the TT is constantly evolving with you each year. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, they're always surfacing parts, and bikes are different every year, and it changes every year, you know, and it takes you a couple of days just to get back into it. And there's nowhere that I, you know, particularly favour. Just I treat the whole course as one course, you know, and just work on areas that you can. And sometimes, you know, one bike will work better in one area, and then you ride another bike and it's not working there. So it gives you an idea of what you're up against with your opponents, or, you know, parts of the track that they're better at, or whatever that you need to work on.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier as well about the Superstock you know, and obviously being unbeaten with that. You've obviously found, you know, with the team as well, it's all gelled. The super stock times this year were incredible, you know, and I can't remember exactly what was it, 1:33:09 or something, beating McGuinness's outright lap record from the year before. What's the reason for, you know, is that a combination of developments with the bike, you know, but it's a bike obviously we can just buy in the showroom, and then obviously with the track conditions, etc.?
I think, I mean, the bike's a great bike, obviously, and I think a lot of it's just come from, that's the bike I've been riding in the British Championship. I did a lot of testing in Spain on it, done the first 3 rounds of BSB competitively. I knew the bike inside out, and when you go to the TT with a bike that you know that well, it doesn't need to be 100% handling perfect. You know, you're used to riding it, and you can accept it. If it's doing something wrong, you just get on with it. And that's where I was with that bike, really. So the times are phenomenal, but there's very little between a super stock and a super bike nowadays, so the times are getting closer.
Yeah. I think as well, I mean, obviously coming back from the injury, I mean, one of the key things was obviously the modification with the bike. Naturally, you know, with the gear change and going over to a right-hand gear change, you know, the brake, using your thumb, very, very difficult. How hard was that to readjust and get used to that?
It's obviously a strange thing to start changing gear with the other foot, but it just took time really, and eventually it's come to. And I still think about it, and then I wonder if I'm thinking about it because it's not natural. But I think you do think about a gear change, so you know I don't make any mistakes and I don't forget which side it's on. So I think it probably makes it a bit easier that my left leg doesn't work. I think if I had 2 legs that could do it and you swap the gear lever, you'd probably keep going for the wrong side. But my left leg doesn't work, and there's a permanent signal going up telling me that it don't work. So it's probably a bit easier like that. But it was definitely better than the option of never racing again.
Yeah, yeah. Because like you say, I mean, the mobility, you know, how much use have you got with the leg now?
It's just my ankle. I can't lift my foot at all. There's no tendons going down to my foot to lift it. So obviously I can't shift up here. So I would never have rode a bike again. Never mind race a bike if I'd stayed with the left shift.
And that's one of the things, obviously, with the book. Your story in terms of coming back. I mean, you know, we had some people earlier in the morning session about how you've massively inspired them. The one thing, and certainly from the times I've spoken to you, you never gave up, and you always had that massive self-belief that you were going to come back. You know, what drove you, you know, forward, and you didn't give up throughout the whole rehabilitation process?
I think it's just from the success I was having. You know, it took a lot to get there. I've done it on my own, and you know, I've not come from a racing family or background or anything. So to get to that point, and then it all kind of stopped from under you, you know, I wasn't ready to stop. So I think if I'd been told right from the start, you know, 100% you will not be going near a motorbike for 3 years, then I probably maybe wouldn't have gone through it all. But you know, I told myself that I'd be ready in 3 months. And then just kept extending it by another 3 months for 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's the toughest bit really, just getting through time. But you know, even 3 years is a short period of your whole life, and it's worth putting the effort in to get back. And you know, I think if I hadn't tried as hard as I had with the fitness and everything, even just to live a normal life, I would have probably still lost my leg. So you know, it was worth putting all the effort in that I did, that was focused around me getting back racing, which helped save my leg in the end.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as well, obviously, there was that point where you thought everything was back on track, and then you went to the XL bike show and a rather innocuous, you know, on a small pit bike or whatever it was, and you knew straight away that there was a big problem.
I never did at first, actually. I fell off this little bike, and it was the smallest little fall ever, and I got up and walked back, picked the bike up, kicked it up, and when I went to put it in gear, I seen my shin bend in half, so I knew something was wrong then. And it was because it was so infected that it had broken. There was no real pain, you know, there was no strength in it. So it was probably the best thing that ever happened, because I was going to be riding a superbike that year, and if I fell off, the first time I fell off, it would have broken, and obviously at 100 mile an hour, it would probably have ripped my leg clean off. At low speed, it just snapped it. So that's when they found that it hadn't healed properly from the original accident, and my bone was full of infection, and we needed to start again with another process. And that's when the surgeons really did the work. To be honest, the second time fixing the infection was way worse than fixing the break, originally. So that was 18 months of bone transportation and a lot more aggro than the first time, really.
I think like you say, it was a bone transport operation, and then you had to fit the external fixator. And get this right, you had to 1 millimetre a day for 4 months, 1/4 of a millimetre every 6 hours, constantly turning it to effectively bring the healthy bones together.
Yeah.
Is that not the point where you thought, no, I can't do this anymore?
I was very reluctant to know whether it was going to work or not, that was for sure, but I had no option. The bone was infected and they cut just over 5 inches, I think it was, out of my tibia completely, so there was just a great big gap in my leg. And then they broke it just below my knee, and then I had to pull the piece down to fill the gap. And then supposedly it grows behind where you're pulling it down, but you have to do it really, really slow, otherwise you just break the contact. So, it was 1/4 of a millimetre every 6 hours, and you could not miss one change. I had to be up till midnight to do it at midnight, and then up at 6 in the morning, and then at 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock every 6 hours for 4.5 months, I think it took to pull the bone down. And the wires that go through pulling it, they just tear their way through your skin to pull the bone down, so you've constantly got weeping coming out of the wires and bleeding. And it was quite new at the time, and there's one guy that my surgeon had started doing it on before I went to the TT, and I came back and asked how he was getting on with it, and he'd given up on it because he couldn't deal with the pain and had his leg taken off. So I was a little concerned, but like I say again, it was just kind of grit your teeth and get on with it and come out the other side, really.
I mean, you called the book Miracle Man. What was the sort of driving force to get the book done? Was it something you wanted to do, or were you asked to do it?
No, I never wanted to do a book, and I was quite embarrassed when I got asked to do a book, to be honest. And they asked me 2 years ago to do it, so I definitely wasn't going to do it then, because I'd not won anything since I'd come back. But, they said that your story's, helping a lot of people, and, I know through social media how many people that have had bike accidents that have messaged me and, said that what I went through has helped them get through their injuries and stuff. So eventually, when I did get back to winning and they were still asking me to do the book, I thought, maybe it can help people that are going through a similar thing, so it was worth doing for that more than telling my racing story. But it seems to be going down that route, and I get some fantastic messages of people that it is helping.
Yeah. And I suppose a miracle man in your eyes is Mr. Kirkovich, isn't it?
Yeah, I never named it Miracle Man, but I get called all kinds of things. But yeah, that's my surgeon's unbelievable what he did, and 1 minute he was 100% confident of fixing it, and the next minute he was telling me that today's operation might result in taking my leg off. So, it was up and down all the time, and he was very real about the options. He never really lied to me. He told me that, we're going to try something. If it doesn't work, you might wake up without a leg. And I always said, whatever happens in theatre, don't take my leg off. Let me come round and tell me that you're going to have to take my leg off. And I never wanted to wake up and it be gone. So, but I was lucky, and it never did get to that.
And it's staggering. I mean, I think we were trying to work out the other day, and I don't think you knew the answer, the total number of hours in terms of operations. But how many operations was it?
Yeah, 30 general anaesthetic operations. So I don't even know how many days I had in hospital, to be honest. I was in and out that many times, and I know that about 3 weeks is about my limit for being able to put up with being in hospital. But yeah, it's not a nice place to be in. But then you do start to feel a little bit insecure when you go home, because you've had so much care around you in hospital, and doctors and people are coming to see you in the middle of the night and giving you your treatment and your antibiotics and all that, and then all of a sudden you've been in there for a month, and then you go home and you're the one that has to get up in the middle of the night to give yourself your antibiotics and all kinds of things. So I'm not a big fan of needles, and I had to start sticking this needle in my stomach every day to stop my blood clotting or something. It's not nice sticking a needle in yourself. So yeah, there's a lot of things to go through with an injury that you'd never know unless you had one.
How long did the book take to put together?
About an hour.
An hour, right.
No, I recorded everything onto a recording thing and just spoke. There's so much, you could write 5 books, you know, and then they decide what's worth writing and what's not. But it was ghostwritten by the guy who wrote Hillwood's book. So he has a good idea of what people want to read about, and he took away what I'd said and then kept ringing me up for pointers, and obviously there's a lot of stuff that he can find out of, stuff that's been put in press and stuff over the years, and yeah, it all came together and it's been a good read.
Are you going to send a signed copy to an address in Ballymoney?
Not for free.
No. Going back to the bike racing, the other thing obviously that's quite significant this year, you went over to the Ulster, 4 wins and a new lap record, making you world's fastest road racer. You like the Ulster Grand Prix as a circuit?
Yeah, it's probably my favourite place to race, to be honest, but also I hate the place when the weather's bad, so I've tried to put into my contract that if it's raining I don't have to race.
And it does get grim there, doesn't
I can
it?
ride good in the wet, you know, I've won races on the circuit in the wet, and you know, I'm not scared of it, but round there I think it's your average speed is so high it can go wrong so fast, and it's just not worth it when you've been through what I've been through. So, you know, this year we went there and the first day of practice and qualifying was pouring down, and I never went out on a bike. I just sat and watched all day, and the way the roads work, that is a qualifying session, it's not really free practice, that gives you a grid position, and the forecast was better for the second day, so I just thought I'd sit it out, and then the second day was just as bad. So eventually, after hours and hours of delays, it started to dry up a little bit, and we were lucky enough to get out and get a few laps on each bike just to get on the grid, and so it made it even more special really coming through and winning the races on Saturday in a super stock bike. I did about 3 laps in a half wet, half dry qualifying session. Qualified 16th, and I said, that's enough, I'm on the grid, that's all I want to be, is on the grid. And the team were obviously thinking this ain't going to be a great day, and I came through and won the race from 16, so yeah. I know I can race once the weather's good, and you know, we can get up to speed, and then to finish the day with the fastest ever lapper there was just icing on the cake really. And
good to obviously win on the big bikes as well there.
Yeah, the superbike. I mean, I had a great TT on the superbike, you know, finishing second in the senior, and the superbike is a good year, but you know, I was up against a rival that's very strong, and he's on a package that he rode for 3 years, and it was always going to be hard to get my bike to the level I needed to beat somebody like that. So, you know, I was still happy with my results, and we went away from there as a team and worked on things that I didn't like with the bike, and the bike's still relatively new to that team as well, you know, now they've got a second year under the belt, they're making a lot of progress with it, and even in the British Championship, Christy and Michael have been making good steps with it, and they built me a different spec engine for the Ulster, and it was everything I wanted, you know, it was a great bike to ride at the Ulster.
Yeah. Are you sort of looking to sort of maintain the consistency and stay with that team for next season? Is that the plan?
Yeah, in all the years I've been racing, I've only ever stayed with the team once for a second year, and that was the Padgett's team from 2009 to 2010. And obviously it worked pretty well for me that time, so hopefully we can get everything sorted through the winter and go again with BMW and go again with Keith Flint's 600 team, and you know, keep the consistency going and have a real crack at try to win 5 again.
Yeah, definitely.
If you aim for 5, hopefully you win 1.
You could get 6 if you go on one of the what did you call them before?
Yeah. Career bikes.
Career bikes. Yeah. You never know.
Or electric bikes. I'm not interested in them, but
that's
yeah,
not interested.
We'll stick to winning
yeah.
the main races for now.
Yeah, yeah. So next stop, a couple of weeks' time, Macau. One that you said that's quite a risky circuit. You enjoy it out there then?
I do, yeah. It's a strange place. I mean, I've been testing for it actually. I've had a few nights out drinking with my mates, so that gets you ready for Macau. So yeah, it's a scary place to race, and it's a place where before the race I'm never going back again, and then as soon as you cross the line after the race you can't wait for next year. But I think eventually I need to grow up and stop going there. It's too dangerous.
So I did say to you, obviously when you won in Macau in 2013, you know, is that the comeback complete? And you said no. and then you said the comeback will be complete when you win a TT. You then, 2015, not one TT but 3, and I asked you, is the comeback complete? And Ian's response was no. Still waiting. Is the comeback complete, or will you say to me the comeback is complete when I've won the senior?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to win the senior again, and obviously that's every race that I go out there I aim to win. So the senior's just one on the list, and I've definitely completed my comeback in this year's success on the British Championship, and I've won 6 TTs since my accident with my leg and 8 before it. So another couple, and I've matched what I did before my leg. So I've definitely achieved enough, I think, after my accident. I'd have accepted one more TT win after what happened.
Yeah. How did it feel, sort of matching Mike Halewood's 14? Was that quite significant?
Yeah, it's a strange thing, the TT, because they don't really sound like a lot of wins, 14, but they obviously are, because not many people have done it. I think I'm joint 3rd now in the list of most winners. So when I started there in 2003 on my friend's CBR 600 road bike and just did the newcomers race, I never expected to be 14 times TT winner, but as a racer you always want more, so whatever you win it's never enough, and you have to make the most of it when you're going through good years, because no doubt I'll have more bad years to come, even if it's just bikes that aren't competitive or any more injuries. But for the time being I'll try and keep myself out of the gravel and try and win some more TTs.
Stay off the curbs.
Yeah.
I mean, because you went to TT, you used to go with your mates, didn't you? And you never had any intentions of riding there.
No, to be honest, we went on road bikes, and my friends were always like 3 or 4 years older than the Armour, so they were always a little bit better when I first got into road bikes and faster, and that brought me on quite quick, try to stay with them. And we went to the TT and we'd sit and watch a race for a couple of laps, then to be honest we just went and pulled wheelies down one of the back streets because we weren't that bothered about the racing. We just liked going round on Mad Sunday and going up and down the promenade, doing all the messing about stuff that you're not really allowed to do anymore. I don't think you're allowed to do it then, but the barrier it all off, so you've got no chance now. But I was more of a stunt man when I was on the roads, and I still love it now. I try to get out and watch some of the public going up and down the streets. And
I think there's some footage of you, isn't there, on Closer to the Edge? Is that you doing the wheelie down the prom?
Yeah, we used to sleep in a van. We used to put the bikes in and then take them out, put a mattress down in back of a van, sleep in a van, and just get the bikes out at midnight and start doing stud-up wheelies and stuff up and down the promenade. It seemed normal when I was 18, but probably not that great an idea.
Look back on that, really fond times. And
yeah, it was good, and it's good to come from being half normal, I suppose, having a normal job, being a bike mechanic, riding road bikes, going out and getting drunk every weekend with my friends, and then now, I still miss a bit of that when my friends are going on stag do's and stuff and I'm at a race meeting and I can't do it, but I was lucky that I did actually do it at some point. The kids that start racing now put on bikes that young, they never really get a normal life through the teenagers, but then they get to be Grand Prix world champions, so it's always a balancing thing, I suppose.
And quite an interesting, I think somebody who was here before was saying, after everything that you've been through, you then made that decision to go and start road racing again. How did you tell your mum?
Yeah, she's never been a big fan of the road racing, that's for sure. But they support me, and she's never been to a race since I smashed my leg. She can't watch. She was never good at watching anyway. They only used to watch in a grandstand because she thought it was slow there. Because she'd go past quite a way away. It don't look very fast. But when I went out there with my leg broken, I took them to a few places. And I probably should never have bothered, but I took them to the bottom of Bagara and that was it. Then my mum nearly burst into tears. She was off. She was never watching at the TT again. So, but they love the success that I've had, and they're proud of what I've done. So it's just got to keep going on. But obviously, every time I'm racing, they live in Spain now, and they were out in Spain in the motorhome when my leg got done, and it was my sister that rang them and said that it fell off, and they're obviously used to that bit of it. And then she ran back and said, it sounds like he might be going to lose his leg, and that was it. The 36 hours non-stop drive back to get to the hospital, and then 3 years of going through, taking me for treatments and doctors here, and I was all the way down at Cambridge, so Coventry, so they were travelling down there to see me, so it's probably pissed them off a bit having to do all that, and then I go back and do it again. So yeah, I think they watch live timing with quite a bit of enthusiasm now, I'd say.
So to take your mum to the TT, of all the places you pick, the bottom of Barrow.
Well, I think it's quite funny to take someone to the worst possible place because it looks amazing, but my mum don't get that. She's not a big fan of it being funny. She thinks it's silly.
Maybe like the run into the gooseneck would have been a better option. They don't go too fast.
Yeah, I think she had no idea what it was like around the course. She just watched us go past the grandstand quite slowly, as she puts it. So, yeah, that's what it is. But you know, we're carrying on with it, and I've lent her a few trophies now to put up in her own house.
Okay, brilliant, fantastic. Any questions from anybody? Yes.
Obviously, saw performance at the TT this year. He has himself on the ground. I was talking about watching the performance on the first lap. Do you wish, in some ways, that that's bad took on to the championship as well? Because that was true reflection of that championship ride. And the second part about the question is, what actually was lost? I've seen you come up, I've seen it go.
Well, firstly, obviously, missing the round at Donington was very hard for me to do because I was lying second in the championship, and I was comfortably finishing on the podium every weekend, which I have done all year. So it was a tough decision, but to go on and win 3 TTs that I might not have done if I'd done Donington, or if I'd gone to Donington and fell off and done a collarbone and missed the whole TT, you know, all of a sudden the British Championship would have been pretty meaningless compared to winning 3 TTs. So it was a tough choice, but I think I made the right choice. And we had a few problems throughout the year. We had a bit of a mix-up with the pit board at Knockhill that I should have won. I was told that I had 3.6 seconds or something, and I had no +0, so I lost a place on the last lap that I should never have lost. And the quick shifter packed in at Thruxton, and it's probably my favourite and best track, and probably the only place I expected to win all year, and I had no shifter and blipper for the whole race, and I finished 4th, which was 0.8 of a second off winning with no shifter. So I lost a chunk of points there, and that was the only race I finished off the podium all year. And then, my momentum was going, and I was winning all the races, and Taylor wasn't. And I knew at some point a 23-year-old lad wasn't going to let me keep winning races. And, at Ulton Park, he obviously got too frustrated and tried to close the door on me, and it didn't work. And, there's just nowhere for me to go, and he rode me up onto the curb, and the curb there's got steps on it because they're car racing to stop the cars running up it. So as soon as I was on the painted steps, I couldn't pull the brake, and that was it. Then we both went straight on. So I was disappointed that it had to come to that. I'd rather have just had a good battle, The whole race was good. I'd passed him about 5 or 6 times, and he'd passed me back, and I'd given him loads of room. It'd have been quite easy for me to run him off the track and help myself, but I never did. And it was a shame, and it annoyed me a bit for a few rounds after that it had come down to him doing it like that. But in the end, he's had a great year, and he's won more races than me, so he was still, the right person to win the championship, I suppose. Yeah, we did, yeah, after... the worst thing was going through all this judicial hearing thing at Donington, because, he was deemed to be riding dangerously, and I had to sit in these meetings with the organisers about, his riding and what penalty he was going to be given, and I don't go racing to be getting somebody a penalty for something. And it turned into like a court of law where we're arguing about what we'd done, which just takes the whole fun out of it, really. The whole Donington weekend I never enjoyed, because I was in and out of these things with him for this, and he'd been in them all year with Josh and other people he's been involved in. I've never been in one in my whole life of racing, I've never been involved in an incident like that. So it took the edge off a bit, and same with the things that went on at the TT. But at the end of the day, that's what happens when you get good results. You're going to have people that don't like you.
We've had a few questions as well that have been sent in. Got one here from Duncan French. Is he here? Do you still go to Devil's Bridge?
No, I don't know. You can't get there now, can you? There's not many cars on the road.
What,
How long does it take to get there?
I used to do it every single Sunday and up to Coniston every Sunday about 6 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, I think I'd probably be in prison if I did it now.
Yeah. We had a question as well, quite an interesting one, from Craig Mawson. All the Craigs here. A few people have said this. When they make the film Miracle Man, which actor should play you and why?
God, they're not going to make a film about me, are they? It'd be pretty cool if that James Bond did it. Daniel Craig or whatever it is. I'm not really a big fan of films, but I watched Layer Cake years ago that he was in, and he is a mega actor in it, so I'm not sure he'd be that happy with having his leg snapped in half for the film. But
we'll look into it. And
he's not as cool as me either, so he'd struggle to play my part, but he's getting close.
Exactly. We had a question from Wayne Brown. If there was one race series or discipline that you could do if given the chance, anything, be that World Superbikes, MotoGP, Pikes Peak, Dakar Rally, is there one thing that you'd want to do if you got the chance?
I did a lot of enduro riding before my leg got smashed. I used to go out to the Isle of Man and ride with David Knight a lot, and I'd love to have done some of the really tough enduro rides. I actually did one. We went to a race called the Tough One in Wales, in a quarry in Wales, and he said that it was just easier to leave my bike in the van and go to this race, and I'll watch him. And when we got there, he'd entered me in it. That's why my bike was in the van, and I never knew. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. It was ridiculous, but it was good fun, and I finished third. So it felt good standing on a podium at the Tough One, a very hard enduro race like that. So I'd have liked to have done more of that.
Well, Niter doesn't mess about either, does he?
No, he's turned into a bit of an old whinger now, but he was unbelievable. I've got a scar on my head from a stone that he flicked up off his back wheel that went straight through my goggles and nearly knocked me out. But I spent some time following him, and what he can do with an off-road bike is literally
unbelievable.
Yeah.
Is he still thinking about potentially having a crack on the roads? He did say
I don't think
that
so. He's got 2 kids and he's scared now.
Right. Okay. Right. Fine. Peter Eaton. I don't know whether Peter's here. We had a question from him. Which of your race bikes would you want in your hallway, and which bike would you never want to see again?
Well, I've got this one in my lounge.
Right.
Which is my first win back from, obviously, after my leg, so this is a nice bike to have. I'm hopefully going to have my Tyco Superstock bike, which I've won all the road races on this year, but it's taking a bit of negotiating at the moment. I would have liked one of the Paget's bikes, but tight old Clive won't sell me one. He's got them on show in the showroom, all 3 of them together, so I can understand that he wants to keep the 3 bikes together, but obviously that was a great year for me. I know I'd like one of those bikes in my collection, but I've got a few. I've got my very first race bike back now, and I've got my McAdoo ZX10 Superstock bike. And yeah, I like to get some of my bikes back. I never want to see a Milwaukee Yamaha for the rotary drills and stuff, so it's worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a pretty dull part of my
I knew
racing
you'd
career.
say the mill, yeah. I knew you'd say that.
And it got missed out of the book. I had to write it in after. I said, you can't miss that year out. It was a total disaster. Oh yeah, it's I suppose it's all part of character building. Jim Moody tells me that.
Yeah.
When I'm training in Glasgow in January and it's hail coming down at 45 degrees and you can't feel your fingers or your feet, and we're cycling, and I said, just explain to me how this is going to win me TT, and he just says it's character building. I said, I've done enough fucking character building. Let's go home.
That's brilliant. Right, just want to say, obviously, thank you for today. Best of luck with the book. And, I think on behalf of everybody, you are a massive inspiration, and it's fantastic to see you back in winning ways. I look forward to the next 5 in a week. And best of luck with the Macau, and obviously for next season as well.
Thank you.
Ian Hutchinson, thank you.